Imagine walking into a store on a Friday night. The bright blue and yellow sign glowing above you, rows of movie cases stretching endlessly, the smell of popcorn in the air, and the excitement of picking the perfect film for the weekend. Now imagine that entire experience disappearing almost overnight, replaced by a quiet app on your phone. This is the story of Blockbuster and how one of the most powerful entertainment giants in the world slowly vanished while everyone was watching. Back in the late 1980s, home entertainment was a completely different world. There was no streaming, no instant downloads. If you wanted to watch a movie at home, you had to physically go somewhere and rent it, rewind it, and return it on time. And that is where Blockbuster came in. Founded in 1985 in Texas, Blockbuster did not just rent movies. It created an experience: clean stores, massive selection, bright lighting, and a system that made browsing feel exciting rather than frustrating. It was like a candy store for movie lovers. At a time when most video rental shops were small, cluttered, and often confusing, Blockbuster felt modern and organized. It was not just about renting a tape. It was about walking through aisles, discovering something new, and making a choice. Sometimes a difficult one. Have you ever spent more time picking a movie than actually watching it? That was part of the charm, and people loved it. And then came the explosion. Throughout the 1990s, Blockbuster grew at an unbelievable pace, opening thousands of stores across the United States and eventually around the world. At its peak, it had over 9,000 locations. Think about that for a second. 9,000 stores, each one buzzing with customers every weekend. It became a cultural ritual. Families, couples, friends, everyone had their own Blockbuster routine. Friday nights became synonymous with Blockbuster. You would rush in before the latest release ran out, hoping there was still a copy left. Sometimes there was disappointment, sometimes there was triumph, and sometimes you just settled for something random, but even that felt like part of the fun. It was not just a transaction, it was an experience tied to emotion, anticipation, and even a bit of luck. Financially, Blockbuster was unstoppable. It was generating billions in revenue, and at one point, it was valued higher than many tech companies of its time. Late fees alone were bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars every year. Yes, those dreaded late fees that everyone complained about, but still paid because there was no real alternative. But things did not stay that way. Beneath the surface, small cracks were beginning to form, and most people did not notice. Yet, in the late 1990s, a new player quietly entered the scene, a small company with a strange idea. Instead of renting movies in stores, what if you could order them online and have them delivered to your home? That company was Netflix. At first, it seemed almost insignificant compared to Blockbuster. No stores, no massive presence, just a website and a mailing system. Blockbuster did notice Netflix, but did not take it seriously. Why would they, after all? Who would want to wait for a DVD in the mail when you could drive to a store and get it instantly? It seemed obvious, or at least it did at the time. Then came a moment that would later be seen as one of the biggest missed opportunities in business history. In the year 2000, Netflix approached Blockbuster with an offer. They wanted to sell their company for $50 million. $50 million, which sounds like a lot. But compared to what Netflix would become, it was nothing. Blockbuster declined. It is hard not to pause here and ask, what if they had said yes? What if Blockbuster had embraced the future instead of ignoring it? Would things have turned out differently? At first, nothing seemed to change. Blockbuster continued to dominate. Stores were still full, revenue was still strong, and the brand was still powerful. But slowly, quietly, consumer behavior began to shift. People started to like the convenience of getting DVDs delivered to their homes. No late fees, no rush to return, no disappointment when a movie was out of stock. And then something even bigger happened. Technology evolved. This is where everything changed. Internet speeds improved, digital distribution became possible, and suddenly, The idea of streaming movies online did not seem so crazy anymore. Netflix saw this coming and began to pivot, moving away from DVDs and toward streaming. It was risky, uncertain, and expensive, but they committed to it. Blockbuster, on the other hand, hesitated. To be fair, they did try to respond. They launched their own online rental service. They even experimented with removing late fees, which had been one of their biggest sources of revenue, but also one of their biggest customer complaints. For a moment, it seemed like they might adapt, and in fact, there was a brief comeback phase. Blockbuster Online started gaining traction. Customers appreciated the flexibility, and the company was still a recognizable brand. Still trusted, still familiar, there was hope. But behind the scenes, things were messy. Leadership changes, internal disagreements, and a business model that was struggling to evolve fast enough. Removing late fees hurt their revenue significantly, and the transition to digital was not smooth. Meanwhile, Netflix was moving faster, innovating, improving its platform, and focusing entirely on the future, not the past. What happened next was shocking. As streaming began to take off, Blockbuster found itself trapped between two worlds. Its physical stores were becoming less relevant, but its digital strategy was not strong enough to compete. It was like trying to run in two directions at once. Customers started to disappear. One by one, store traffic declined, revenue dropped, and the once vibrant aisles of Blockbuster stores began to feel empty. And then came the financial collapse. In 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. It was a moment that felt almost unreal. How could a company that once seemed unstoppable fall so quickly? It was not just a business failure. It was the end of an era. Stores began to close. Thousands of employees lost their jobs, and the iconic blue and yellow sign started to vanish from streets around the world. One by one, the lights went out. But the story does not end there. There is something strangely fascinating about what happened next. While Blockbuster, as a massive corporation, was gone, one store refused to disappear in Bend, Oregon. The last remaining Blockbuster store continues to operate, not because it is profitable in the traditional sense, but because it has become a symbol, a piece of nostalgia, a reminder of a different time. People travel from all over just to visit it, to take pictures, to relive memories, to experience something that used to be ordinary, but now feels special. Isn't that interesting? Something that was once everywhere is now rare. And because of that rarity, it has gained new value. Meanwhile, Netflix went on to become one of the most powerful entertainment companies in the world, producing original content, winning awards, and changing the way we consume media forever. And it is not just Netflix. Streaming as a whole has completely transformed the industry. Companies like Amazon, Disney, and others have entered the space, creating a highly competitive environment where convenience, personalization, and instant access are the norm. Looking back, it is easy to say that Blockbuster should have seen it coming, but at the time, the future was not so clear. They were successful, profitable, and dominant. Change is hard, especially when everything seems to be working, but that is also the lesson. Success can sometimes make companies less willing to take risks, less willing to disrupt themselves, and more likely to hold on to what worked in the past. So what really happened to Blockbuster? Was it bad decisions, bad timing, or just the natural evolution of technology? Maybe it was a combination of all three. There is something almost poetic about it. A company that built its empire on physical media being overtaken by digital convenience, a brand that defined movie nights becoming a memory of movie nights. And yet, the emotional connection remains. People still remember walking into Blockbuster, still remember the excitement, the frustration, the late fees, the choices, the experience. Because in the end, it was never just about renting movies. It was about moments, about anticipation, about sharing something with others. Now everything is instant, unlimited, always available. And while that is incredibly convenient, it makes you wonder, did we lose something along the way? Did the effort of going out, choosing carefully, and committing to a single movie make the experience more meaningful? Or is this just nostalgia talking? The rise and fall of Blockbuster is not just a business story. It is a reminder of how quickly the world can change, how even the biggest companies can disappear if they fail to adapt, and how innovation often comes from unexpected places. It also makes you think about the present. Which companies today seem untouchable? Which industries feel stable and secure? And what new technology is quietly growing in the background, waiting for its moment? Because if history has taught us anything, it is that change is always coming, whether we are ready for it or not. And sometimes, the biggest shifts happen when no one is paying attention. So next time you open a streaming app and scroll endlessly through options, take a moment to remember Blockbuster, not just as a company that failed, but as a symbol of a time when entertainment felt a little different, a little more tangible, a little more human. And now I want to ask you, do you think Blockbuster could have survived if it made different choices? Or was its downfall inevitable in a world moving toward digital everything? Let me know what you think in the comments.